Hello, students. I'm Sam sir, and today we are with the third chapter of your book known as Fundamentals of Human Geography. The chapter's name is Population Composition. Now, you can distinguish people by age, we say children or youngsters or youth, or the people who have retired or the grandparents. We have the sex, that is, the males and the females. We have the place of residence and occupation. We can distinguish people by education and also life expectancy. Now, out of these six, there are four which are indicators for the economic growth of a country. They are age and sex, and age and sex are often closely related. So we study these two together. Then literacy and occupation. This term you know from your previous classes, sex ratio. You keep on hearing this in the news also. The number of men and women in a country is an important demographic characteristics. It gives an important information about the status of women in the country. Now, this is the reason why it's important. If we are to be called a developed country, the status of women in the country becomes an important pointer for that. You just saw a chapter known as human development uh, in the previous video, and there are some pointers there, some indicators for human development. Out of that, one is this also, the status of women. The ratio between the number of women and men in a population is called the sex ratio. Now, you should learn this definition. It's very small, very easy to understand, and very important also. Remember, it is a ratio, it is not a number, right? It's We're not talking of several crore men and several crore women. No, that is not it. We are talking about a ratio, and we always express it uh, compared to 1000 men 1000 males. All right, we'll see some examples. Now, the formula to calculate is you divide the female population by the male population and you multiply it with 1000. Now, why is the female sex ratio unfavorable in different parts of the world, including India? We have female feticide. This is uh, killing the baby before it's born. So many girls uh, go away like that. Sad. We have female infanticide. These babies die after they are born, or they are killed rather. We have domestic violence against women in different forms. It can be between husband and wife, it can be between father and daughter, it can also be between brother and sisters, or it can be between peoples who are not related. But if it is between a male and a female, and if the female is at the receiving end, it's known as domestic violence against the females or the ladies. And the fourth reason is the lower socio-economic status of women. Well, there are only few societies where ladies are given the rights of economic and financial decisions, the social decisions. And if even if the number of females in an area or in a society is more, it doesn't automatically mean that they are superior or they have all the rights or their conditions are good. No, it's not that. Often the reason why number of females in an area are more is because the males have migrated out for work and employment. Now let's look at the sex ratio from the international viewpoint, also the Indian viewpoint. The average sex ratio for the world is 102 males per 100 females. The highest is in Latvia. When we look at it from the female point of view, there are 100 females for 85 males per 85 males. And the lowest is in Qatar. There are only 100 females per 311 males. Just note that I'm reading it backwards. But I'm going to read about India from uh, front to back, not from back to front. The population, the sex ratio in India is 1000 males per 924 females. This is an average value. The worst is 85 males, just like Latvia, or 850 females per 1000 males, that is in Haryana. And the best is in Kerala, that is 1064 females per 1000 males. Now, the greater part of Europe, Latvia is an European country. They have the males in minority. If you can just see in the second line, Latvia, the males are in a minority there. This is because of a better status of women and an excessive outmigration of males to different parts of the world. Now, it's not the family size or the number of male and female children is, yeah, of course, it's a family decision. It's the decision of the father and the mother. But at the same time, in this chapter, you will learn that these things which we take for granted and we take it as a gift of the nature, true, it is true, but it is pointing out to how developed we are. It is pointing a finger directly at us. Are we developed or not? And these are the indicators. Then, when we look at the age structure, this structure represents the number of people of different age groups. So we can divide this into three parts. The first age group is for children. This is from age 0 years to 15 years. Now these are the children now, and they are dependent. They don't earn. They have all the needs. They need a house. They need food. They need clothing. They need education. They need healthcare, and they are depending on the person who are earning. So they constitute a major um, portion of the indication towards the growth of an economy. And if the number of children is more, it straightly denotes a higher birth rate. Of course, there's a youthful population associated with that. But at the same time, if the birth rate is very high, we'll be looking at that later. It also means that the life expectancy is low. Yes, it's true that if the birth rate is high, the life expectancy of people in that society is low. The second age group is the working age group. This is between the years age 15 and 59. Now, this is the working population, and they can be the major source of economy for the boost of the economy, and they can contribute a lot to the country. They can contribute a lot in the terms of, let us say, they want to join the armed forces. These are the people who will be actually beneficial for the armed forces. Then the age group which is more than 60 years are again dependent, just like the children were dependent. This is the aging population, and they are dependent elderly people. Some of them get a pension, most of them don't, and they require more expenses on healthcare facilities. But once again, I should tell you that if the population in this age group is more, it also means it's indicating uh, it's indicating to increased life expectancy. If the society is growing, if the society is developing, the life expectancy increases. The birth rate decreases and the life expectancy increases. Now, this can be shown graphically, and it's a there's a graphical way of to represent the proportion. See, it's not number, it's proportion. It's a percentage of females and males in different age groups on the same graph. It can be represented, and it appears like a pyramid. So that's why we call it as age sex pyramid. We have the males in different age groups, and we have the females in the different age groups, and we keep it all together. I'll show you two shortly. A population pyramid is used to show the age and sex structure of the population. And there's a convention that on the left hand side of the central line you show the population of the males, and on the right hand side you show the population of the females. Here is how. The blue side that is on the left hand side is the population of the males, and the one that is pink, that is of the females. And again, um, if the graph looks like a triangle like this, it means that the birth number of births and the birth rate is high, and the life expectancy is less. These two things are always together. Please take this as granted. It's a result of a study. If the life expectancy has to increase, the birth rate has to decrease. Now, we'll be needing to interpret these graphs, and it's very simple to do that. Now, just look at these four figures. On the left, that is the first figure, is a population which shows a very rapid growth. And see how pointed it looks. We are talking about the first one on the left. So it has a very high birth rate, and the axis on the left shows age, 15 years and 65 years, and it ends in a sharp peak. So that is the population of the elderly, the very old people. There aren't many here. So that is the reason why we say that if the growth rate is fast, if the pyramid looks very pointed, it has got high birth rate and a high death rate also. The life expectancy is not much. In the second figure, that is stage 2, the figure is still triangular, but it is not as sharp and as pointed as the first one. Here the growth rate has slowed down and the life expectancy has increased a bit. In the third figure, the growth rate has become stable, and on the top you can see that it's curved now, and it means that for different age groups you have more people there. That is why it's curved, and that clearly tells us that the life expectancy for this population, which is denoted by stage number 3, has increased. Now, what do you say about stage number 4? It has got a curved top, but look, it's narrowing at the base also. It denotes a population where the birth rate has decreased, and it has a good population in the age of 15 to 65, that is the working age. 65 is almost like retirement age, and it also has got a good population of old people. So here you have a lower birth rate, slowly growing population, almost declining. The growth rate is either zero or negative here. And you have a young population, working population, a lot of them, and then you have a lot of old people here. We learn about this little bit more. Now let's look at this. This is the population pyramid for Nigeria for the year 2003. Now this age sex pyramid of less developed countries have a wide base and a narrow top. It looks like a triangle. They have a larger population in the lower age group due to high birth rates. And what do you say about the other end of the age group, the old people? You see how less they are. The people of the age 80 plus are not even 0.25%. So such a society uh, has got lot of children, lot of population growth. They don't have many people in the working age group, and that is why these countries are poor. And they don't have many old people. They are dead and gone. So the life expectancy is less. This is the interpretation of this graph. Now let's look at a population which is constant. If the birth and death rates are almost equal, the pyramid is bell shaped like this and tapered toward the top. Now this one is for Australia, and it is for this year, the year 2020. Now here you can see that their working population, that is from the age 20 to 60, it's wide. So you have more working people here. You have less children. The growth rate is less. It has slowed down. And then if you look at the elderly people, the ones which are 70 years and more, you have some percentage in every age group till the age of 99 years. So this country has got a good population of old people from the age 70 to 99. So we say that the life expectancy of this country is good. Naturally, there has to be living old people, then we say that. So this is an example of a developed country, and this is in contrast with the underdeveloped country which you just saw, Nigeria. Now, here's a population pyramid of a country where the population is declining, is reducing. The birth rate, the growth rate is either zero or it has become negative. Now, such countries show a narrow base and a tapered top. So, if we talk about the base first, incidentally, this is for the year 2020, and it is for Japan. So, if the base is narrow, it means less children in that age group, and it has got a good population, good percentage of people in the working age group, and even in the old elderly age group from 70 to 100. Yes, there are some people 100 years old and they are females. So it's a healthy population for the elderly people, also healthy population for the children, for the youngsters, and for the adults who are working. So this is a good society to live in. That is Japan. Now let's talk about India. Now India, you can see that this shape is going to be like a bell now. This is India, today's population. We are 138 crores already. And you can see that we have the birth rate is decreasing, so we have some narrowing at the bottom. And then for every age group, especially in the working age group, we have people, a good proportion. And also notice that the left hand side, that is the blue side, is almost symmetrical to the right hand side, that is the pink side. That is, it means that the proportion of men and proportion of women, there is not too much of disparity. If you take any age group, let us say we take the age group of 35 to 39. So the male composition is 3.9% and the female composition is 3.6%. And then we have population till age 89. We don't have population showing appreciable number above 90. So our life expectancy can be taken as 89 years. Although the percentage is very less than 0.1% only. This is India in 2020. Now, better to compare ourselves with ourselves. We have the two figures now. Both are of India, of 1950 as well as of 2020. Now, in 1950 was only just a couple of years after we got our independence, and we were really struggling those days. And we wanted to start on the journey of economic development. And when we got the freedom, we got the power to do that. But before that, we had a wide base. We had a big growth rate. And we had lesser and lesser and lesser and lesser people in every increasing age group. Although the proportion of males to females was almost the same, it was really good. But then look at the life expectancy. 84% and only 0.1 people, 1% there. So that again proves that if the growth rate is more, the life expectancy is less, and the number of people who are in the working age group are less. And we were not developed those days, we were underdeveloped. But now we compare the left hand side pyramid with the right hand side pyramid. The base has become narrower, the middle portion has bulged out, and the top portion is narrow, but in the course of time, this will start looking like Japan's pyramid. Look at Japan. 1950 was just a couple of years after the two atom bombs were dropped over Japan. And that was their difficult time. That was a difficult phase for Japan. They had enmities with several countries, including the United States of America. But they really chipped in. They really worked hard for their own development. And look at the pyramid today. It's representing a developed nation. It's a developed country now. This is the relationship between growth rate, development of a country, and the life expectancy. So you should be able to see these graphs and interpret them and answer questions based on this. Now let's look at the rural-urban composition. Rural means belonging to villages. Anything which is not urban is rural. That is, anything which is not city is rural. And urban means naturally cities. The metropolitan cities, or it can be also larger cities or larger towns. Now, the basis of stating it is the place of residence. Either a person stays in a village or in the rural area or in the urban or in the cities or in the towns. Why is it necessary? It's necessary because the rural and urban lifestyles differ in terms of livelihood and social conditions. The age, sex, occupational structure. Now, here, just remember there is one more thing: occupation. The density of population and the level of development vary between rural and urban areas. And in rural areas, you find people, many of them are engaged in the primary activities. In urban areas, people are more engaged in activities which are not primary activities. We have two chapters only on this: secondary activity and tertiary activities. In the same book, later we will learn the differences in rural urban sex composition of developed countries are just the opposite of underdeveloped countries. Now look at this graph. The first three from the left, Finland, Canada, and New Zealand, even include the fourth one, Brazil, are developed countries. And the fifth and the sixth, Zimbabwe and Nepal, they are undeveloped or underdeveloped countries. And between Zimbabwe and Nepal, the development is better in Nepal. And there are pairs of bars in for each country, and there you can see for Finland you have two bars, for Canada you have two bars. The one which is on the left represents the rural population, and the one on the right shows the urban population, and this is for females. On the y-axis on this graph you can see this is females per 1000 males. So we are talking about ladies now for each country. To interpret it like this, if you take the example of Finland, there are more ladies, 1083 in the urban areas, and 986 in the rural areas. This is how interpreted. Just go to Nepal, it's just the opposite. You have less number of ladies in the urban areas and more in the rural areas. Now, what is the implication of this? In Western countries, the males outnumber the females in rural areas, and females outnumber the males in urban areas. Instead of Western countries, we can take any developed country. The excess of females in the urban area is a result of influx of females from rural areas to avail of the vast job opportunities. Now, if these females from the village areas have moved to city areas to avail of the opportunities in the sector of jobs, naturally it means that these females are educated. Otherwise, if they are not educated, they will not be able to stand in the competition in the urban areas, because urban areas will naturally have uh, educated females. So this kind of economy shows that there is education in the rural areas also. Now, what about the males? Now, this in such countries, farming is also very mechanized, and the males dominate there. The males do all the farming and the industrial activities and the other economic activities. But females feel themselves free to move from rural areas to the cities. And you all know that getting a job or getting a work and getting employment is directly related to what? It's related to the quality of life. And there, that is where we fail because of the poverty. And poverty has got the reason of uh, illiteracy. And it's a cycle, it's a circle. So, in developing and underdeveloped countries, the case is just the opposite. Females' participation in farming is very high. They do not migrate to cities because of the shortage of housing in cities, the high cost of living in cities, the paucity of job opportunities in cities, and lack of security. And that is why the male urban population is higher in such countries. If the females cannot do it, the male men go out to find work in cities. Let's talk about literacy. The definition of literacy of a literate person in India is the percentage of population above 7 years of age who is able to read, write, and do arithmetic calculation with understanding. You should also know this definition. Now, here are three curves on the graph below. One is the orange colored one shows the male literacy. The green colored line shows the female literacy, and the average is the blue line. which is including both the males and the females. And this is for the years up to 2011. It's increasing and it's going to increase. The proportion of literate population is an indicator of a country's socio-economic development. It's easy to understand. If a person is literate, or if you find more literate people in an area, naturally this area is developed socially as well as economically. And it reveals the standard of living, shows social status of women, educational facilities, government policies. The people who are literate are aware of all this, and they contribute to the society for the growth, for the well-being of the people, for their own well-being. Literacy helps them to better their own lives and better the life of the country. Economic development is both a cause and a consequence of literacy. These are two things interrelated. If economic development is there, literacy will also be there, and if literacy is there, the economic development will also happen. Now we look at the occupational structure. Now we said that people in the age group 15 to 59 are the ones who are working. The primary activities are the ones in which one is directly working with the natural resources, such as agriculture, forestry, fishing, and mining. The secondary activities are manufacturing activities, and this in this manufacturing activities, they're depending on the produce of the primary activities. That is why they are known as secondary activities. In the tertiary activities, this is about trade and transport and communication and other related services. And in quaternary activity, you have jobs related to research and information technology and developing ideas, so on and so forth. Now, the proportion of population engaged in these four sectors is a good indicator of the levels of economic development of a nation. This is because only a developed economy with industries and infrastructure can accommodate more workers in the secondary, tertiary, and quaternary sector. If economy is in the primary stages, the proportion of the people engaged in primary activities will be high, as as it involves extraction of natural resources. This is the end of the chapter. It was a very small chapter, very simple chapter. We in this chapter we have seen how age and sex together, age and sex, and the occupation and the literacy, all these four things are studied, and how they are responsible for the economic growth of a country. If you have gained anything from this chapter, give it a thumbs up and wait for the next video. Subscribe to this channel. Bye for now.